So we have a long history in this country of politicians making ill-advised statements about exactly which percent of the country they find to be bad. And Joe Biden had his own offering in this direction yesterday. Let's take a listen.
Do we want our kids, do we really think this is as good as we can be as a nation? I don't think the vast majority of people think that. There are probably anywhere from 10 to 15% of the people out there that are just not very good people.
What? I mean, listen.
At least you revised it down.
Yeah, like, what was it with Hillary? It was like, oh, I think we actually have her comments. We'll play them in just a second.
We have
but
the comments.
Even if it's true, why would you do that? Why would you try to quantify exactly which percent is in the good camp and the bad camp? This just never ends well for anyone. Let's take a listen to Hillary's very memorable, deplorable comments from last cycle.
To just be grossly generalistic, you could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
So she's pegging it more around like maybe, I guess she's more on like the 20% end, like 20 to 25%.
If you think about it, if you define Trump supporters as his base, which is approximately 33% of the country, half of that, 17, something like that. So there you go, Hillary. So Biden revised, I guess this is the funny thing. It's like Romney really just set the scale by going all out with 47%. I actually think we even have that. Let's play that before we react.
Well, there are 47% of the people who will vote for the president no matter what. All right, there are 47% who are with him, who are dependent upon government, who believe that they are victims, who believe that government has a responsibility to care for them, who believe that they're entitled to health care, to food, to housing, to you name it. That it's an entitlement, and the government should give it to them. And they will vote for this president no matter what.
Still makes my blood boil. Maybe 6 years later, or actually longer. 8 years later? But you could just see that it's like Romney sets the stage at 47, Hillary revises it down to like around 50, and then Biden, sticking with the 10 to 15. I do think this is something that, it's very endemic, right, to that Biden base, which we talk a lot about here, of the suburban, upper middle class white liberal. And that is really how they view much of the country, right? We've talked here often about how so much of the media, so much of the core Democratic base really does not want to do any sort of self-reflection, or I guess the elites in the party don't want to do any sort of self-reflection as to why these millions of people who voted for Barack Obama voted for Donald Trump in 2016. And I think that it's that attitude that very much pervades it, which is that, oh, screw the voters, some of them are just bad. Some of them are terrible. Some of them are irredeemable. And when you begin to come off that way and you're running for president of the United States, it's good. That type of elite attitude pervades kind of everything that you do. And of course, people are going to remember it. A lot, I'm sure the deplorables thing, I cannot tell you how big of a thing that was, on the right, in terms of every MAGA grandma on Twitter put deplorable grandma, MAGA 2016 or whatever. I expect to see a similar thing.
That is the thing, is people don't think, oh, he's not talking about me. They think, no, you're talking about me. You think I'm the bad one. And I think, you never want to overanalyze these things. And Joe Biden, things just fall out of his mouth. Lord knows what he's really thinking behind any of it. But there's a couple of things. First of all, there's what you're talking about, which is if there's a group of voters that are bad, unreachable, they're just bad people, then you don't have to think about them. You have to do the fact that they're not with you, that's not your fault. That's their fault because they're bad, right? And you see that with Romney's comments. Romney at 47% is really, really out there with the bad people. Half the country is apparently bad people in his book. I wonder if it's just weird because of how he approaches things now. I feel like he's actually really reformed on that issue. Then you have Hillary Clinton, deplorables. They're never going to be with us. Now you have Joe Biden in the same vein. You could also point to Barack Obama with the clinging to the guns and the religion. So there's that piece, which is this lets me off the hook from having to even think about those bad people that we don't even want to support us. But I also think that this is something we all engage in, which is kind of trying to decide who gets to be on the good side and who gets to be on the bad side in society. And look, there are some people who engage in more immoral acts who are quote unquote bad people. But I also think it's a very convenient mental trick to convince yourself that there's this like bright line between good society and bad society. And part of what has freaked people out that we've talked about during this time, when you have protesters who are mostly peaceful, but you see, you know, people looting and people burning things. You've got police officers who are supposed to be on the good line, especially if you're a white American, that's the way you feel about it. And then you see them gassing and bullets and like rubber bullets, and like we showed with, you know, pushing this elderly man down. All of that very comfortable idea that there's this bright line between the good and the bad starts to break down. And I think that really makes people deeply uncomfortable. So Joe Biden trying to restore that for you, trying to say, look, we got 10 to 15% who are on the bad side. Don't worry about it. If you're on the other side, we're all good to go. Pretty wild.
Yeah, well, if you're in that 10 to 15%, watch out, folks. All right. There we go. All right, we'll have more Rising for everybody after this.